Some changes do not make noise. They do not come with slamming doors or dramatic farewells. They simply happen. One day you realize that what once made sense now feels distant. People who used to move you now seem neutral. Places that once vibrated with your presence now sound empty. This is not discouragement. It is the end of a soul contract. Yes, you read that right. Soul contract. A silent agreement made deep within your essence, long before you understood with your mind. And now, this contract is coming to an end. And like any spiritual closure, it does not come with signs or explanations. It comes with sensations. And the body begins to feel before the mind realizes. The chosen feel this more intensely. They cannot force connections where the energy no longer exists. They try to insist, but the heart does not vibrate. They remain silent, looking at what once was important, and feel that something inside has already said goodbye. And when this farewell begins, the entire inner universe changes frequency. This video is about that. About the silent signs that your soul is finalizing a cycle. About how your own energy is saying, we have already fulfilled this part. And you, even without knowing it, are already being prepared for what comes next. A new calling, a new mission, a new path. If you felt touched by these words, subscribe to the channel. Not to follow yet another piece of content, but because here, you will find what the world does not teach, the spiritual backstage of your journey. Here, we speak of the soul with truth, because those who are chosen need to remember who they have always been. There comes a moment when you start to feel a different silence within. It is not sadness. It is not hurt. It's as if everything that used to move you now just exists. You look at certain people with affection, but without that bond from before. You visit places that used to make you vibrate, and now you just observe, without connecting in the same way. This feeling is not indifference. It is farewell. It is the soul closing a cycle without needing words. When a soul contract is coming to an end, it does not come with announcements or rational explanations. It comes with lightness, with that emotional emptying that only those who are chosen understand. Because the chosen feel the truth before it is spoken. You start to realize that what used to excite you, what used to move you, no longer has strength. Conversations that once made your eyes sparkle have become repetitive. Certain companions that once calmed you now just exist. It's as if your heart is trying to gently tell you that that bond has already fulfilled its purpose. The hardest part is that many times this disconnection has no reason. There was no fight, no disrespect. The feeling simply no longer exists with the same strength, and that's why it is so confusing. The mind tries to understand, seeks justifications, while the soul just feels it's no longer here. For the chosen, this manifests more intensely, because everything in their lives needs to have meaning, vibration, presence. When the soul of a chosen one no longer feels, it is already moving in another direction, even if the body is still there, trying to insist on what no longer vibrates. You may blame yourself for this. Think you are cold, that you are changing too much, or that you no longer know how to love. But this is not coldness. It is evolution. It is spiritual growth. Your soul is calling you to the new, and it needs space. It cannot carry what is already energetically dead. These emotional disconnections are invitations to the next step of the mission. When something ceases to make sense, it is because another meaning is being built. And if you try to force permanence in something that has already been, you start to feel fatigue, anguish, even sadness, because you are resisting the movement of your own soul. Respecting this call is not about abandoning anyone. It is about honoring yourself, It is recognizing that cycles come to an end, and that everything that had value also had its time. The soul that fulfilled its role in a story no longer needs to justify itself. It just moves on, with peace, with lightness, and with gratitude. If you are feeling this, do not ignore it. Listen, observe, notice what no longer vibrates. You do not need to move away fighting, nor do you need to explain too much. Just accept that something inside you is changing, and that this change is sacred. It is the universe repositioning you with love. If this content makes sense to you, if you feel that your soul has been trying to talk to you for some time, subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about this without fear, without taboo, without judgment. Here is a space for the soul to breathe. Have you ever noticed that some pains come suddenly, without trigger, without clear reason? It's as if something explodes inside you out of nowhere. A tightness in your chest, a suppressed cry that reaches you in the middle of the day. And then you think, but I've already gone through this. Why is it coming back? The answer is simple, yet profound. What is coming back is not the suffering. It is the emotional memory that was stored away. And now, with the closing of a soul contract, your essence is showing you what still needs to be released. Because to turn the page, you need to clean the margins. Intense emotions, discomforts out of nowhere, a light but persistent anguish. All of this is a sign that the soul is working. It's as if it is saying, there is something here that you haven't looked at closely. Shall we look at it now? And no matter how much it seems like a setback, it is the necessary step for complete healing. The chosen feel this more deeply, because their story is not common. Each bond has a purpose. Each stage has spiritual weight. Therefore, even when it seems resolved rationally, the body still carries remnants. The soul asks for a final cleansing, a last gesture of acceptance and release. This cleansing does not come with a manual. Sometimes it comes with anger, sometimes with longing, sometimes with emptiness. And all of this is necessary, because before being repositioned, you need to empty out. No new mission starts with accumulated emotional baggage. The old needs to leave for the new to enter. You may feel strange, out of balance, wanting to isolate yourself, feeling everything at once. But don't worry, it is not a loss of control. It is reorganization. The soul is putting everything in its place. And while this happens, you feel, because the healing process is not rational. It is felt. These emotional waves are not mistakes. They are adjustments. They are the body vibrating at a new frequency, and the heart saying goodbye to the old frequency. And yes, it hurts a little, but it also frees you. And when this phase ends, what remains is space. It is clarity. It is lightness to continue. When you feel this silent pain, do not despair. Do not criticize yourself. Just embrace it. Breathe deeply. Feel what you need to feel. Speak less. Feel more. Your soul knows exactly what it is doing. It is preparing you for a new cycle that demands a new version of you. Cleaner, more whole, more truthful. You are in a strange moment. Nothing is clearly wrong, but it is also not right. What used to motivate you now seems neutral. What made sense is starting to lose its shine. And at the same time, there is a silent feeling, as if something is emerging, but you still cannot see what it is. This is a common territory for the chosen. The moment between the end of a spiritual contract and the beginning of the next is not marked by major events. It is subtle, silent, sometimes even confusing. It's as if a door is closing, and you hear the sound of another one opening, but you still cannot find it in the hallway. You feel a discomfort, but you cannot pinpoint where it comes from. A fatigue that is not physical. A desire for change, without knowing exactly what needs to change. You wake up with that feeling that something is forming in the invisible, but when you try to name it, you only find silence. This is how new calls begin. They do not come with ready-made maps. They come with intuitions, with desires that seem vague, with sudden inspirations that touch you and then fade away. But they return, again and again, until, over time, what was just a feeling begins to take shape. The problem is that we have been taught to only act with certainties. But in the spiritual world, the greatest movements begin with faith, not guarantees. And the chosen know this. They know they need to respect the signs of the invisible, that they need to walk even without fully understanding the destination. This emptiness between the old and the new is not a waste. It is preparation. It is the time when God repositions your pieces, even if you are still standing on the board. It is where your soul is tuned to a new frequency. And that is why everything seems a bit strange. You have not yet connected with what is coming. You may feel the urge to start something new, but don't know what. You may want to change your environment, your people, your routine, but have no clear direction. This is the call arriving. The call never starts as an order. It starts as restlessness, like a gentle push saying, "Get ready, something greater is coming." Trust this process. Even without a name, the new is approaching, and your soul already knows. It begins to move, to expand, to open up, even when you are still in doubt, because the chosen receive the signs before the confirmation. They feel before understanding. They perceive before seeing. This transition time is not a waste of time. It is spiritual construction. It is the necessary interval between a completed mission and another that is about to be born. And when this new mission arrives, you will recognize it. Because what is today a discomfort will tomorrow be clarity. And what is today doubt will become direction. If you are experiencing this now, embrace it. Do not force answers. Do not rush time. Just stay connected. Keep listening to your own silences. Because it is in these spaces that God whispers the plans that are still being prepared. You know that feeling of life being stuck in repeat mode, as if the same mistakes, the same disappointments, the same pains always come back one way or another? For a long time you thought this was bad luck, or maybe a kind of personal karma, something that seemed to follow you wherever you went. But it was not punishment. It was learning. And the most important thing, it is now coming to an end. When the soul starts to close a spiritual contract, the situations that came as tests, lessons, or mirrors simply begin to lose strength. You no longer need certain triggers, because what needed to be healed has already been touched. What needed to be understood has already been absorbed. What needed to be broken no longer controls you. It's as if the universe subtly says, "You understood. Let's move on." And what once caused you pain no longer touches you in the same way. The people who used to destabilize you no longer have the same effect. Reactions change. The weariness diminishes. And you begin to realize that something inside you has already turned into something else. The end of a cycle rarely comes with fanfare. It does not bring signs or formal farewells. It arrives in the details. In your new way of responding, of choosing, of positioning yourself. You begin to react with more calmness, to decide with more presence, to step away without guilt. And when you look back, you understand that repetition has stopped. What used to pull you to the same place no longer has power. For the chosen, this moment is felt as liberation, because their spiritual life is cyclical, but not stagnant. Each repetition carries a key, and when you turn that key, the door opens. And on the other side, there is no longer a need to live the same scene with the same characters. It is common to feel a certain emptiness when this happens. Even if that pattern was difficult, it was familiar. And the new, at first, always feels strange. But this emptiness is not absence. It is fertile ground. It is where the universe plants new possibilities. Now that your frequency has changed, the experiences that come to you will also be different. You do not need to chase after anything. You do not need to force connections or seek explanations. The pattern that disappeared has not fled. It has been closed. Because you have evolved. And that, in itself, is an answer. It is a mark of your spiritual advancement. The repetition that seemed eternal has come to an end. Because you are ready to live in a new way. And this changes everything. There are moments in the journey when everything around seems to keep spinning. But inside you, everything is asking for a pause. The desire to talk disappears. The interest in maintaining old connections weakens. The social becomes exhausting. And the sincerest wish that arises in your heart is to be alone. Not out of sadness, but out of a need that cannot be explained. This urge to withdraw may be frightening at first. You have always been someone present, participative, willing to listen, advise, and carry. But now, even that feels heavy. It's as if something inside you is saying, "Stay here for a while with yourself." And this call comes without drama, without crisis. It just comes. For the chosen, this need for isolation is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of reorientation. The spirit understands that after a spiritual cycle ends, before the new begins, there is a necessary interval, a time where there is no action, only listening, where there is no external movement, only inner presence. Solitude, in this context, is not absence, it is preparation. It is as if your soul is saying, "Let's be silent to hear what the new cycle wants to say." Because what is coming requires a new version of you. And this version needs to be born without interference. It needs space. You begin to reject superficialities. Shallow conversations tire you. Emotional noise pulls you away. Places with confusing energy become unbearable. Your spirit is trying to align with what comes next. And anything that is not vibrating at this new frequency feels strange, even aggressive. During this time of withdrawal, you may feel that you are losing ties, but in reality, you are cleansing connections that cannot follow you. And silence is the field where this cleansing happens. It does not erase what was good. It simply dissolves what no longer makes sense. The introspection of the chosen is not escape. It is alignment. It is when the soul converses with the heavens. It is in this sacred silence that answers appear, that intuitions clarify, and that internal confusion is replaced by a new order. Not an external order, but a new spiritual direction that can only be heard in silence. It is common, during this phase, to feel nostalgia without knowing for what, or a desire to cry without apparent reason. Do not fight against it. The soul is reorganizing the files, deleting old files, saving what is essential, creating space for the new. And this hurts a little. But this pain is also cleansing. You will notice that the more you respect this time, the more peace grows within. Even without many answers, even without knowing what comes next. There is a silent certainty that begins to occupy space, a faith that does not need explanations, a trust that does not need guarantees. This time alone will show you who you are, without distractions. It will reveal the parts of you that were hidden behind commitments, conversations, and movements. You will rediscover yourself. You will relearn to enjoy your own presence, and this will change the way you relate to the world outside. And when it is time to step out of this silence, you will know. It will not be forced. It will be natural. You will feel firmer, clearer, lighter, because this withdrawal was not a hole. It was a womb, a place where a new version of you was being formed. There are goodbyes that have no words, that do not require fights or hurt feelings. They are the ones that happen in silence, where everything slowly drifts apart until you realize the person is no longer part of your life. They have been left behind, without anyone consciously choosing that. These subtle exits are more spiritual than emotional. They are responses to an energetic change that you may not have consciously noticed. Something got disconnected. A thread that linked you broke. And when that happens, there is nothing to hold on to. The bond that united you was a soul contract, and its time has come to an end. The chosen experience this intensely, because their relationships are not based on convenience. They are based on purpose. They are not there just for companionship. They are there to fulfill a function in your path. And once fulfilled, the presence is no longer necessary. The universe gathers what is already served. You may feel strange at first, wondering what you did, what you could have done differently. But the answer is not in the actions. It is in the vibration. You have changed. The other has too. And this change does not need to be visible to be real. In the invisible realm, the mission that united you has been completed. It is like a job contract that reaches its end. It does not mean it was bad, nor that there was conflict. It means the cycle has finished. And everything that tries to continue beyond its time becomes a burden. Insisting on a connection that no longer shares a common frequency is like trying to tune two different radios to the same channel. It just doesn't work. Some of these separations come calmly, others are abrupt. Sometimes the person simply disappears, without giving signs, without saying goodbye. This does not mean you were not important. It means something greater is repositioning the pieces, that your path and theirs do not follow together from here on out. The chosen need to learn to accept these voids without blaming themselves. The absence that appears after a separation is not a punishment. It is a transition. And every transition hurts a little. But it also opens space for the new. The space that today feels like loneliness, tomorrow will be fertile ground for new connections that align more with who you are becoming. You have not been forgotten. You have been promoted, released. The presence that left did so because it has already fulfilled what it needed to fulfill. And true love, when it has served its purpose, knows when to depart. Without drama, without guilt, just with silence. The silence that spiritual contracts use to say, mission accomplished. Have you ever experienced something that seemed like just a coincidence, but it happened so many times that it began to feel like a message, like hearing the same phrase in different places, seeing a specific number everywhere, or having improbable encounters that awaken a feeling of, this is not by chance. For the chosen, this is not imagination. It is spiritual communication. When a soul contract is about to be closed or when a new cycle is being activated, the universe moves around you, and not in an obvious way. It communicates with you through subtle signs, small details that repeat. They are like codes that only make sense to those who are spiritually aware. Closing a spiritual cycle is like crossing a bridge without seeing the other side. You feel that you need to move on, but you still don't see where to. This discomfort, this emptiness, this feeling of, I am no longer who I was. All of this is real, and for those who are chosen, it is part of the journey. You are not lost. You are being repositioned. What seems confusing now will soon make sense. Every goodbye that hurt, every silence that tightened you, every person who left without reason, were signs. signs that the previous stage has ended. And what comes next requires that you be clean, light, and available. The chosen live with greater awareness. They do not cling out of convenience. They connect out of purpose. Therefore, when this purpose is fulfilled, the connection dissolves, not out of lack of love, but out of mission. And what remains after is not a whole. It is space. Space for the new, for something more aligned, more true. You are going through an invisible crossing, a phase between the end and the beginning. And this cannot be explained. It must be felt. The world does not understand, but the spiritual world understands perfectly. God understands. Your soul understands. And if you have made it this far, it is because something within you has already awakened to this new frequency. Now I ask you, have you ever felt that something ended without warning? That someone left your life as if something invisible had decided for you? Share in the comments. Speak about what only you have lived. Your process can illuminate the path for those who are still in the dark, seeking meaning amid the crossing.